All right. Once again, good morning, and thank you all for coming. I am really excited to be here, and I do love being part of this project. And I think that what we do as a group, not only the developers that I work with from day to day, but our entire community, developers and users and educators and sponsors and everybody involved with this endeavor, protocol analysis. I think what we do is important because people need to know what's going on their networks, and Wireshark and other tools help them to do that, and helps to inform decisions that they might subsequently make. Now, I do have a lot of different things to cover in this talk, and I'll try not to meander too much. But before we get into the main part of the presentation, I'd like to start off with a quick update on the state of the project and a few miscellaneous items related to that. First up, we have a major release coming up. We haven't had a major release in quite a while, and I'm hoping to have it out in the next few weeks, sometime soonish. And if you want to actually try out a preview of that, you can download the 3.5.0 development release right now from the Wireshark main page and from the download page. And you can kind of see what's going to be in the upcoming 3.6 release. What's in 3.6? Well, we have a bunch of things, many more things that I can adequately cover here, but a few of the highlights are that we're going to be shipping an installer for macOS on Apple Silicon. And if you're not familiar with what Apple Silicon is, it's just Apple's brand name for the ARM processors that they ship with their various bits of hardware. And traditionally they've been shipping Apple Silicon as the CPU for things like iPhones and iPods and iPads and even AirPods. But in the past year, they've started shifting over to shifting from Intel to Apple Silicon on Mac hardware. And as a result, we now, we want to support that platform. So we now have an installer for that platform. We also have better documentation thanks to the Google Season of Docs. Google sponsors this program where they pay technical writers to help improve the documentation for open source projects. And we participated last year, and as a result, we have a better user's guide, and that worked out really well. We also were the indirect benefit of a program called Outreachy, which helps to promote diversity in open source development. And the Git version control system, worked with Outreachy, and they sponsored a developer to help improve the Git protocol dissector for Wireshark. And again, that worked really well. I thought that was really cool. And like I said, there's a bunch of other updates and improvements, and you can, let's see, there should be available in the release announcement that I sent for 3.5, but they'll also be in the release notes for the upcoming 3.6 release. We now have a code of conduct, and if you want to read it, you can go to wireshark.org/code-of-conduct.html. This is something that's long overdue for us. A lot of other open source projects have had codes of conduct for years now, and it's something we've talked about for a long time and just never got around to doing until very recently. And I wanted to let everyone know that we have a code of conduct, and it's a bit more constructive and comprehensive than what you see on the screen here. But I also wanted to take this moment to thank everybody who helped in this endeavor. And this did require the input from a lot of people, and everyone was very helpful in this. And again, thank you for all the people that did help out with this. A lot of people want to know various statistics about Wireshark, and if you look down this list, you can see that one thing's missing, and that is how many people actually use Wireshark. And that's a number I just don't know. I just don't know how many people have Wireshark up and running in front of them at any given time. And it's just, that's telemetry that we don't collect. But we do know this. I know that on the download servers that we manage, all the Wireshark.org download servers, we get better than 1 million downloads a month. The number most of the time is comfortably above that. And the thing is that excludes things like Linux distributions, because if you use Wireshark on Linux, typically you download the Linux package that you download the Wireshark package that your distribution provides to you. and we just don't have visibility into those numbers. But of the numbers we do know about 90% of those are for Windows, and that's not really surprising because that just reflects, desktop market share, just among people who use Windows and Mac OS and Linux. The number that is kind of surprising is that only about 70% of our Windows users download the 64-bit packages. And among the developers, we've talked in the past about the possibility of someday maybe not delivering 32-bit packages anymore, but it looks like for the time being, we have to do that. But if you could start downloading the 64-bit packages, that would make our lives a lot easier. The 3.6 release is going to support over 2,650 protocols and about 220,000 display filter fields. And that's just a reflection of the kind of linear growth of our dissector code over time. That's just kind of an incremental growth over past releases. One of the stats I do love is that we have gotten contributions from over 1,900 authors so far. And I do love being a part of a project that has so many contributors and attracts so many people. It's kind of an energizing thing. Finally, we have a really vague number. You might be wondering why there's such a big range in the lines of code that we have for the project. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is, there are a bunch of utilities out there that will count the number of lines of code in a repository, and they all return different numbers. And in our case, they might make a distinction between automatically generated code and handwritten code. And we do have a lot of automatically generated code. And so, if you kind of distinguish between those two, you can get different numbers that way. And so, unfortunately, if people ask me how many lines of code are in Wireshark, that's another number I just don't know. It's somewhere between this range, 3 million and 4.7. With that little bit of housekeeping out of the way, I'd like to talk about finding truths on your network. And I posted on Facebook recently that the industry that I work in, protocol analysis, is predicated on finding the truth. And my friend Kristen responded with this. She said that the revelation of the truth shall be the undergirding of all meaningful work. And I have to say, she says stuff like this all the time, things that are very kind and eloquent like this. And I think it's kind of second nature to her, but it's also her job. She's a pastor. But as she says, the truth is important. And in our case, in the world of protocol analysis, that work is meaningful. In our line of work, the truth lets you identify problems that impact people's ability to live their day-to-day lives nowadays. Everything we do is done over software, and that software relies on computer networks. The work that we do helps people track down suspicious activity on their networks. Maybe that might be an intrusion or something like that. It helps you develop new products, and it helps people learn about how the world around us works. Again, most of the stuff we do is done over a network nowadays, and it's important for people to learn about that and learn how all the stuff works under the hood. And again, all these things are important, and they all have meaning and are dependent on finding the truth. So what are the truths that we deal with? Well, they typically look a lot like this. As the joke in the slide title kind of alludes, this isn't really a packet, it's a hex dump of a packet, but the packets are the things that we deal with from day to day. This particular packet, again, is a hex dump, but it represents a packet that was sent over the wire, I think back in 1997. It's from a capture file that I originally used to develop Ethereal, which then became Wireshark. And if you look at this, it's just one step above looking at wiggly lines on an oscilloscope, but at the same time, it's pretty useful. I know that this was sent over Ethernet, so I can look at the first 6 bytes and say, okay, that's the destination address. And then the next 6 bytes and say, okay, that's the source address. And then the next 2 bytes out of that, 000, indicates that the following payload is IP version 4. And if we look at the first nibble of the next byte, we can confirm that because we see the number 4. And so on. If I know all the protocol specs, I can make my way through this packet, or at least if I have them handy and can look up things, just but yeah, just I can go through this byte by byte and bit by bit and analyze this packet. And this is a perfectly valid way of looking at packets. I wouldn't recommend that you do this in a capture file with 1 million packets, but at the same time, for just a single kind of one-off, two-off things, it's a perfectly valid way of going through packets and analyzing them. And if you want to write an analyzer that prints out something like that, it's pretty straightforward. If you have a packet capture library, which libpcap is the big one that everybody uses and has used for a long time, you just open up an interface and then you loop over all the packets that come in. And if you want to be really fancy, you can print out a timestamp and then print out the hex dump like you see in the previous slide. And this is, if you're writing a protocol analyzer, this is kind of the thing that you do on day one, literally just on the very first day, maybe within the first hour or so. And this is how Wireshark started. I mean, not literally, it was written in C code, but this is again how Wireshark started, and with this very simple bit of code that where you open an interface and loop over the packets. And I would imagine that other tools kind of started out the same way. This is kind of the first thing you do when you play with libpcap. But again, this is what you do on the first day, on day one. On all the other days that you write a protocol analyzer, you do all sorts of other things. For instance, within Wireshark, we stay at the packet level and dig into every packet and try to provide as much detail about that as we can, and then provide higher level features like filtering and higher level analysis and things like that. If you're writing an intrusion detection system, you can, again, hover at the packet level and look for suspicious traffic and indications of some sort of compromise or malware or other suspicious activity. If you want to zoom out, you can take a bunch of packets and correlate them. The popular thing to do is track flows, TCP and UDP flows, and flows based on protocols at that level. And you can either do that with the packets directly, or you can pull in flow data from a piece of networking gear, which again, that networking gear will be looking at the packets and correlating all those flows for you. If you not only receive packets, but send packets, you can do cool stuff like write a port scanner and poke at hosts and see what they do when you send different traffic to them, or write a packet replay tool that lets you see what happens and when you replay traffic and maybe change a few things around and see what happens then. One of the cool things about all these different tools is that in our industry, most of them use PCAP and or PCAP-NG as a file format, and this lets you pivot between these tools really easily. You can save out a packet capture in one tool and then load it up in another for later analysis and things like that. I don't know that other industries have that sort of interoperability. I mean, in a lot of industries, you'll say about a proprietary format, and only one tool can read that, and it's not nearly as useful. So all the features that I've been kind of talking about take a lot of work and a lot of effort. And I want to make it clear that this is a completely non-scientific and non-comprehensive list. This is just a list of open source projects that I had off the top of my head that dealt with packets, and along with a number of lines of code in each project. And this illustrates how much work and effort it goes into going from day one to day two and beyond. And if we look at, say, Wireshark, within the Wireshark main UI, that little widget in the lower right-hand corner that shows you the hex bytes of each packet, that's only 800 lines of code out of 3 or 4 million lines of code. And again, that just illustrates the fact that we're going way beyond just looking at hex dumps here. We're providing a lot of other higher level features. And as you can see, across all these tools, that took a lot of lines of code and a lot of effort. And this only just scratches the surface. There are a bunch of other tools out there that aren't listed here. But within Wireshark, and I'm assuming these other projects, the goal isn't just to help you avoid looking at hex dumps. It's to give you higher level views that you can that you can use, looking at a packet as a human and, make decisions and make discoveries and work with your data however you want, whether you're troubleshooting a network or developing a new product or what have you. And within Wireshark, we help you get to those various goals that you might have in a number of ways. And first of all, within the application itself, we provide lots of details about lots of different protocols. And that's actually why our code base is so big, because we do support so many protocols. But beyond that, we provide filtering and higher level analysis and things like that. And if we go in a layer higher at the actual application binary level, we try to make sure we run where you are. We run on as many systems as we feasibly can. Most people are using Windows and Mac OS and Linux on their desktop nowadays, and that's where we have our tier 1 support for Wireshark. But there are a bunch of other operating systems like the various BSD operating systems that also have desktop environments, and we support those as well. And as I said a couple of slides ago, we work with PCAP and PCAP-NG to save our packets, and we have those as our primary capture file formats, and that lets you integrate with other tools. And Wireshark itself ships with all sorts of command line utilities and lets you do further integration at that level. And so you can set up all sorts of custom workflows where you can process packets in various different ways to suit your particular environment. Beyond that, at kind of the administrative level where I work, we try to make sure that Wireshark is easy to get and to use. And so, for instance, we try to make sure that that you can go from loading the Wireshark website to having packets, up and running and captured and in front of you in as few clicks as possible. We try to make sure that installation process is easy. We also try to make sure that people can contribute to the project, and that you can, change Wireshark and take that code that we've written and send it to our source code repository and integrate that code and maintain that and test that code. And we also try to make sure that the community can communicate, and that we have things like mailing lists and the question and answer site and the wiki and the issue tracker, so that the community can throughout the year talk to each other and help each other and assist each other. But the thing is, Wireshark, as it says on the slide, Wireshark is not enough. We try to show you as much detail as we can about every packet that comes our way, but you as a human need to interpret that and be able to work with that. And that's where SharkFest comes in, and other educational resources come in. And that's why the educational portion of our community is so important. The instructors here that in all the sessions that you'll be seeing today and tomorrow will show you all sorts of interesting and cool things about protocol analysis and how to interpret the information that you see, and how to and let you make informed decisions based on that information that you do see. Excuse me, I need to get a sip of water here. But so how do you get the most out of SharkFest? Well, in these trying pandemic times, we aren't able to have in-person events. So, if we were having in-person events, you could just kind of, walk down the hall and sit down in a room, and there would be this person right there in front of you in person telling you about all sorts of different things. But as you can see, kind of on the lame joke on the slide, that since it's a virtual event, you get to do the exact same thing. You get to go to this virtual room and have an instructor tell you all sorts of interesting things about protocol analysis. One of the things I try to stress, and I'll stress that right now at the beginning of each SharkFest, is that I really do believe that everyone here has something interesting to contribute. Not only the presenters, but the attendees as well. I think we all have interesting and insightful things to share about protocol analysis. And I do encourage you both, back when we had physical events, and now in this virtual one, that I encourage you to talk to each other and talk about, protocol analysis and how you go about solving problems with each other. I think that's an important aspect of this conference. Again, you could, if this were a physical event, you could stop by the developer den and talk to the developers, but we also have that here in the virtual event. And We had packet challenges, and again, we have a capture the flag challenge at this virtual event. And I put, as I said, this is kind of a lame joke, but it's also to illustrate what a wonderful job and Sherry and Angela have done in pivoting from having these virtual events to physical events. And I think they've done a wonderful job in making sure that we do have a high quality event that we have to do remotely. And so I just wanted to take this moment to thank Sherry and Angela for all the work that they do and have done in SharkFest. So Sherry's over there, I'm way there. But again, thank you. I'm going to change gears for a little bit because protocol analysis made the news recently. And it's always interesting when your profession makes the news because you get to see how people who maybe aren't familiar with something you've been immersed in for a long time, and I've been immersed in this for almost 30 years now, but you get to see how people on the outside see and interpret and what you do and see what their expectations are of what you do and what you've been immersed in. And in case you're wondering what this is a frame from a video which was released late last spring, but it purports to show interference in the 2020 US presidential election. And as you can see, you have a host, the host is up in the upper left-hand corner, and you have a blurred out kind of hackery looking person in the lower left-hand corner. And on the right side, you have a hex dump. And remember how I repeatedly said that hex dumps are a day one thing. When you're writing any sort of analysis tool, you immediately pivot away from that and move to higher level views and more informative views and more easy to understand views. But they don't show any of those in this video. They only show hex dumps. They could have showed the output of RIM or TCP dump or Wireshark or packet analyzer or ntop or any of a number of other tools that are wonderful tools, but they didn't do that. And they kept talking about PCAPs, and as far as I know, they haven't released any yet, neither at the time of this video or in the following cyber symposium that they had about this. You have to remember the whole goal of protocol analysis and even intrusion detection is to give you truthful information so that you can make wise decisions. And I don't think that's what is going on in this video. I think they're presenting information in a specific way that's intended to guide people to make bad decisions. So what's going on here? Well, a lot of people have written and talked about this, and a complete discussion of this would take more time than what we have allotted here. But I would like to focus on a couple of things. One, what you saw on the previous slide was literally taken straight out of Hollywood. If you're wondering what's up on the current slide, this is from a web page from a website called TV Tropes, and TV Tropes tracks all the different plot devices that television and film writers use to advance whatever story they're telling. And if you do have an afternoon to waste, go to TV Tropes and just start clicking on links, because there are all sorts of interesting pages like that on that website. But in this particular case, what you see in the previous slide is described right here on TV Tropes. Hollywood hacking is where they portray hacking as this kind of handy wavy, really impressive and cool looking, maybe cascading hex dumps, of data on the screen, like maybe the matrixy drop-down stuff, but it might look impressive, but it doesn't really tell you anything useful, at least anything as far as protocol analysis. And this whole thing frustrates me for a couple of reasons. One is that, the big obvious reason is that they're making extraordinary claims about our election without really providing any proof of that. But the other big reason I'm frustrated is because this, I find it insulting as a person who works in the protocol analysis field. Because they're completely ignoring all these wonderful tools that all these people have written and the really smart and talented people, they just completely ignore that and just give you hex dumps, which are not quite as useful. And this whole thing just has all the hallmarks of con artistry and hucksterism, and I'm just sad that it happened. I'm not sure what to do about this other than complain like I have been for the past couple of minutes, but I will tell you this. I remember the first time I ever saw a protocol analyzer. I remember that day very clearly. I was working at a university and we had a pretty good sized computer network. And this was at a time when most places didn't have any sort of network. And we needed to maintain and troubleshoot it. And we had this little box called a sniffer. And I just remember the first day I saw the output of that sniffer, I didn't quite understand everything it was showing me, but I knew that it was showing me what was going on the network. And that was, something I got immediately excited about. And that sort of, that level of excitement has stuck with me to this day. And it's, why I'm proud to work in this industry. And I do hope that you feel the same way about protocol analysis. I hope that you get excited about finding out what's going on under the hood of your network and about, the truths that are happening underneath, down at that level. Again, you have to remember that the work that you do as a protocol analyst, it helps people to inform decisions that people make. Those decisions might be about something sort of mundane, like reconfiguring a piece of network gear or replacing a piece of equipment, or even something maybe a little bit more immediate, like reacting to an intrusion. But sometimes the decisions that you help inform are much more monumental and affect things like how we conduct our elections. And it's important to be truthful in what we do and what we say. Having said that, I'd like to change gears again and finish the talk with an update about the future of Wireshark as a project. Along with the other work that I do, day-to-day writing code and maintaining, various things about the project, one of the things I do is just kind of pay attention at a high level to how the project is doing organizationally. And, I'm happy to report that, we're doing great. But, I have this kind of loop that's always running in the back of my head that says, okay, yeah, we are doing great, but how do we keep it that way? How do we avoid, any problems that might come our way in the future? And we do have a couple of risks with the project right now. One is that we have a single point of agency. We only have one person who is me, who can do a lot of things on behalf of the project. And if I were ever unable to do that, and I want to stress that I do want to keep working on this as long as I can, but if I were ever unable to work on the project, there'd be a short-term kind of large impact on the project as far as, getting a lot of the infrastructure we have, making sure that continues to run and operate as it should. We also have a single point of sponsorship, and that's my employer, Riverbed. I want to stress that Riverbed has done an outstanding job of sponsoring Wireshark over the years, but if that were ever to change for some reason, then again, it would have a severe and monumental impact on the project. And so a few of us, kind of in the project leadership have been talking about this over time, and the solution, we've investigated various solutions of this over time, but the one we kind of landed on is this. I want to stress that this is still a plan, and this plan is only just now starting to hit reality. And if you've ever tried to plan something big, which it's just this kind of amazing, sort of horrified train wreck feeling watching it, encounter reality and have to be modified because of that. But the plan is this: the plan is that we are ultimately going to form a 501c3 nonprofit under the US tax code to be a new home for Wireshark. And I will stress that we've just started this. It's going to take time. This is something that's probably going to take the better part of a year. But I do encourage you to keep an eye out for any announcements that we might make about this, and we'll keep you updated as we can and as we progress with this. So as I said, keep an eye out for various announcements concerning this about the project. I've been kind of heads down on this, working on this for a few months now, and I'm really excited about it. And we are starting to make some progress on it. And again, I'm really excited about this, and I hope you are too. Finally, I wanted to say thank you. If you're wondering what the picture is on the screen, I think those are alpacas. But on the weekends, I do road biking. I get on my bike and ride around the countryside where I live. And as an aspect of where I live means that during the summertime, I go out and ride when it's really hot and really dry, and I run the risk of dehydrating myself. And right now, because everything is literally on fire around where I live, that means that it's kind of smoky too sometimes. And as I ride around the countryside, I ride past all these ranches and farms, and as you can see, there are all these animals that look at me kind of maybe wondering what I'm doing out there working so hard when they're sitting in the shade. And the reason I'm telling you about this is just to prove a point. That the point is that I'm maybe not quite as bright as livestock, and I want to stress that because Wireshark is a great and wonderful thing, and I'm not quite as bright as livestock. The Wireshark is a great and wonderful thing, not because of me. It's because of you, because of the Wireshark community, because of all of the users and educators and developers and sponsors and people who even develop projects that deal with packets alongside us. And I do love being part of this community, and it's kind of a dream job, and I hope to do it for as long as I can, as I said. And I just wanted to say thank you all for this. So thank you. We do have plenty of time for questions after this, but I'm going to hand things over to Saka for a quick talk about the capture the CTF challenge that we have. So I think, Saka, that's where you can come in.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for the handover. And once again, welcome to SharkFest from my side. And I've been creating a CTF, a capture the flag server, with all kinds of packet challenges. Some are more packet analysis related, some are more security related. But it's a lot of fun. It's been started since Monday. So if you haven't joined yet, you're a little bit behind, but there's still time to catch up, I guess. Let me share my screen for a second to show you what will be visible when you join. If all goes well, you see the screen with all the challenges. At first you only see the introduction challenge because there are some guidelines on how to use the CTF. Once you've done those, you get a little points for that as well. Then there will be like all kinds of questions, like trivia, questions by the sponsors, some protocol questions, and it gets a little bit more complicated once you go down. And the last one, that for me the crown jewel, is a escape room kind of challenge in network traffic. If you've been to a physical SharkFest before, you know what that kind of looked like. So. As I said, people have started already, so there's a scoreboard, and there's quite a bit of tournament going on already. But I'm sure you'll enjoy joining. For me, the whole point of the CTF is not so much the competition, but to face challenges that teach you something, because you really need to dig down on your knowledge, look things up, think about things. So it's a learning experience too. So I hope to see you in the CTF. You go to ctf.wireshark.org and you register, and you're good to go. Then I have one more thing to mention. as you might have seen in the agenda, there's a packet doctor session, and the packet doctor session is a session where the packet doctors, this time it's Chris Greer, whom you might have seen during the pre-conference classes, Betty Dubois, who you have made a joint class with, and myself. We will be analyzing trace files that we haven't seen before live on stage. And the whole purpose of that session is to see how different people approach trace files and a problem differently, and to take away some ways of doing stuff. But the whole problem with doing the packet doctors is that we need PCAP files, and PCAP files that we haven't seen before. And you might have seen it in the agenda PDF, or you might have not seen it, but we need PCAPs. And for that, please, if you have a PCAP that is not too sensitive, because the session is not recorded, but still it's being shown to a lot of people. So it should be either anonymized already, or maybe we can anonymize it for you to have limited exposure. But well, anonymization is difficult. So please make sure that it's not there's no sensitive information in it. But if you have interesting PCAP files from problems that you have solved, or maybe problems that you're still trying to solve, send them in and we'll do our best in analyzing them on stage. So that's it for me. I'll stop sharing my screen. And I hope you all have a very pleasant time at SharkFest, and hope to see you in one of the reefs in a video audio conference too.
All right, I'm going to switch back. All right. Which means that Zoom just hid the Q&A. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them here. I can spend the rest of the session answering any questions you might have. Looks like we did end a little bit earlier than I anticipated, but let's see. Somebody's asking, how does the 501c3 relate to the Wireshark Foundation? That's a great question. Wireshark's assets, namely our trademarks, are currently held by a corporation which we set up a long time ago to, for that purpose. That corporation right now is a subsidiary of Riverbed, and the plan is to just spin up a new foundation. We can't call it Wireshark Foundation right now because there's already a Wireshark Foundation, that I just mentioned. But spin up the new foundation, get all the IRS approval, tasks done, and during that process, transfer the assets over, and then we can dissolve the current Wireshark Foundation and spin it and rename the nonprofit to the Wireshark Foundation. That sounds kind of convoluted, but it's just the path that we have to take. And again, that's one of the reasons that this is going to be a multi-month thing. It's just that we have to do all these tasks related to qualifying for 501c3 status. Any other questions? How can we as users contribute? Is there a place to make donations? There is not yet. There will be a place to make donations, once we get that nonprofit status. And at that point, you're going to be sick of hearing me tell you that you need to be donating to this project. So kind of keep an eye out for us hitting up for donations sometime next year. At least that's the plan. The plan is still, meeting with reality. Somebody's asking how the core developers and I are doing. As far as I know, everybody's doing well. I can't answer for the other core developers. I don't know if they want to chime in here, but I'm now working from home, and I probably will be for the foreseeable future. So that was kind of a shift due to the pandemic. But otherwise, doing great. Let's see, I don't see any other questions popping up. Let's wait a couple of minutes for any other questions. But other than that, if none pop up, I can give you 15 minutes to do something either productive or non-productive as you see fit. Let's see, glad to hear that. Somebody said thank you again. Thank you all. Like I said, this project is a product of the community, and again, I can't thank you all for everybody who makes it what it is. All right, it's Wireshark for iOS. Any future plans? That is a technically feasible thing. The user interface toolkit that we use does support iOS and Android, so we could theoretically have some sort of thing that shows you packets on, say, an iPad, your iPhone. But the big question there is how much of our UI would we have to trim out and kind of transform in order to make it usable on a small touchscreen? I just don't know how. I haven't taken the time to sit down and figure that out. And as Roland said in the chat, no, from a developer aspect, that would be a big challenge, and it would be a lot of maintenance that that we would have to add, on the developer end that we might not be prepared for. Somebody said CloudShark works great on phones. Well, okay then, maybe that's an option. Let's see. Is it true that about 10% of internet core traffic is not a standard protocol? Is that your understanding? I do not know. If somebody does know, that would be a great thing to answer either here or in the Discord. It's been a while since I've, well, I haven't done this in a while, but something I encourage you to do, if you have, say, a cable modem, if you have any sort of connection where you can measure your home traffic on the outside of your home router or firewall. If you're like me, I have a cable connection at home, through one of the cable providers here in the US. And if you're like me, when you ordered that connection, you immediately threw out the gear that they gave you and used your own gear, beyond the cable modem that either you got or they provided. I sometimes capture the traffic on the cable modem side of well between the cable modem and my firewall, and take a look at it. And it's always interesting to see that just all the junk that comes across and all the kind of the background noise of the internet. And I'm sorry I can't answer the question accurately, but I do know that the internet does have background noise, and it has had background noise for a very long time now. And sometimes it's kind of useful and interesting to look at that and just see what's going on there. I don't see any other questions. All right, I'm going to wrap this up, but if you do have questions, don't hesitate to stop by the Developer Den channel in Discord and just, ask whatever question you might have. Again, thank you all for coming to SharkFest. And as I said, the instructors here are top notch, and I can't, wait to see what unfolds over the next couple of days. So thank you all.